Hey there, sports history fans. Arnie Chapman of Fantasy Football Origin Stories here to tell you about a new way to play fantasy football this upcoming season. Tailgate Fantasy Sports is the game you've been waiting for. It's a new type of fantasy football that's totally free and easy to play. Just sign up with your email, pick your favorite NFL team, and set a 3-man lineup using only players from that team. Rotate 2 players each week and add power-ups to boost your players' scores. The best part? One random power-up drops every week. Now, it's not going to replace your existing leagues. In fact, it might be the way to get some of your favorite players on your home team. Because we all know how hard it is to get your hometown team's players in your home league, right? That is, if you truly follow some semblance of an ADP. I mean, come on. You think I'm getting Amon-Ra, the sun god, at market value in my home league? Pick number 7? You gotta be kidding me, dude. Get all the rules over at tailgatefantasysports.com. But the real action happens at tailgatefantasy.io. Tailgate Fantasy Sports, where true fans rule the game. Join now and help us put the word fan back into fantasy football.
One of the top experts in early football rules history, Timothy P. Brown, joins us once again this Tuesday to research the evolution of the football field press box as well as other communications on the sidelines. We see this happening every game we go to, but knowing the history of it, well, it's just something special. Tim joins us in just a moment to tell us all about it.
This is the Pigskin Daily History Dispatch, a podcast that covers the anniversaries of American football events throughout history on a day-to-day basis. Your host, Darren Hayes, is podcasting from America's North Shore to bring you the memories of the gridiron, one day at a time. So as we come out of the tunnel of the Sports History Network, let's take the field and go no huddle through the portal of positive gridiron history with pigskindispatch.com.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
Hello, my football friends. This is Darren Hayes of pigskindispatch.com. Welcome once again to the Pig Pen, your portal to positive football history, and welcome to another edition where we get to visit with Timothy P. Brown of footballarchaeology.com, talking about one of his recent tidbits. Tim, welcome back to the Pig Pen.
Darren, good to see you again and hear your sultry voice.
Sultry voice, oh.
Yeah. Well, you know.
Hey, you talk to me like that, fella, you're going to have to buy me a drink.
Yeah, unfortunately, we've never been in the same room with one another. And so, someday someday that will happen. And
yeah,
I will buy you a drink.
Most definitely. I'll buy you one back too. So we might not be seeing each other for very long. It'd be blurry. But, we'll have some fun, that's for sure. But we will communicate. And
yes.
Sort of the topic of tonight's episode, where you wrote a tidbit not too long ago about press boxes and some communication with the sideline and from yesteryear. And this is very interesting stuff and some great football history that we can't wait to hear.
Yeah, so this one, as you said, it's about press boxes and kind of the physical structure of the press boxes. And then, how did people on the sideline communicate with press boxes, either the coaches that were ultimately made their way up there or the folks in the press. And so, not to shamelessly plug my book, Hut, Hut, Hike, but, that book is about the origins of football terminology, when they first showed up in the popular press and kind of why they came about. And so virtually every stadium in the world has box seats, right? And those were box seats and press boxes. Those were terms that originally came from the theater world, where, people paid premium prices to be closer to the stage. And then in the case of the press, they wanted whoever were the movie critics of the day, but instead we're doing, live shows. They would come and watch the show. And so they'd get a favorable spot to do so. And so then that carried over to the football world and the baseball world. So when stadiums ended up needing to find a place to put the members of the press, and early on, most of these stadiums were pretty informal, slapped together, wooden bleachers and yada yada. So the press boxes were pretty much of this similar ilk. So there's images, so those who are listening, if you get a chance, get out there and take a look at some of the images from the article. But some of them were as simple as just a table along the sidelines where these guys sat and watched the game and took their notes.
That image that you have on there of that almost reminds me of almost like a basketball game. How you're right side court or sideline, and field view, and guys sitting there writing stats down and newspaper articles. So that's kind of a cool picture.
Yeah, and a lot of times, there were other tables along a sideline like that oftentimes had like the official timer. So depending on the stadium, they could sometimes offload some of the timing from the head linesman to to somebody on the sideline. But in any event, so then they started kind of in the same periods they started putting these press boxes up at the top of the stands. But they're not like the fancy air conditioned and heated press boxes of today with all kinds of internet connections. I mean, a lot of them were, basically open air. They might have had a roof. Some of the images that are in there show a press box with a roof and others without, but a lot of them were open air. Some are basically just like, just look like, they're up on scaffolding, so they were pretty primitive affairs. And depending on how big the game was and, what the local press corps was like, it could be a half a dozen guys, or it could be, whatever, 20, 30, 40. And then, once you get into the concrete stadiums, starting especially in the 20s, then you start getting a little bit more formality around the press box. But the other challenge all along, so no matter what the era, one of the challenges, not just for the press, but for fans in general, was just trying to figure out what the heck is going on down on the field. And so what they would do is, for a long time, there were guys who used like semaphore flags or, just different kinds of signals. They'd communicate one way or the other to the people in the press box, like to one guy in the press box, and say, hey, here's, number 22 ran the ball, or this was a touchdown, or this was a touchback or a safety, because those were very difficult to differentiate back in the day. And so, this is the days without oftentimes no player numbers, and no referee signals. And actually, a lot of the reason for the referee signals was to, when that originated, was to communicate to the press. So anyways, but, people also were smart enough to figure, hey, we had these things called telephones, and Penn had at least some form of telephone communication with the press box back in the 1890s.
Wow.
But a lot of them, didn't have that. I think there was much more of a 20s and 30s era when that really started happening. So there's images there too of, in the article, of, coaches, and typically it's just one coach on the sideline who's got a phone or a headset. And he's talking to somebody who's observing things up high. And that's back when you didn't have an offensive and defensive coordinator yet. You had a head coach and maybe a defensive coach, but the guys who were playing offense were playing defense too. So, you didn't need the specialization. So one guy talking to the spotter up high, was enough. So anyway, it's just kind of interesting stuff, and you can kind of see the progression. The technology, gets better and better, and and now it's like, everybody's got their headsets. They don't even need the cords and all that kind of stuff. So it's things are different than they used to be.
Well, I mean, some of it is now, like you said, sort of stayed as tradition. I know as an official, we were, that's who we were signaling to. We were to face the press box and signal the press box for, now it's basically the official scorekeepers and PA announcer, not so much the press, but signaling to that. And then the home crowd is usually on that side, and they get to see the signals. And of course, the visitors, they get upset. Maybe they can't see them as clear, but that's how you do it traditionally. And as far as the evolution of the press box, I think I've told the audience this before, and I apologize if I have, but a couple of years ago, I got to go to Tom Benson Stadium outside the Pro Football Hall of Fame during the enshrinements, and I was part of the media. I got to sit up in the press box, and I couldn't believe it. I've been in a lot of like high school press boxes and college press boxes. This thing has marble tables with, like you said, the internet connections. You have USB ports and Ethernet cables, and somebody asking if you need anything. I was expecting to see like pencils and paper, but no, everybody had a laptop computer, and there's a little buffet set up, and at least the NFL takes good care of you at the Hall of Fame weekend anyway. But it was very impressive how the press box was. I wanted to live there. It was nice.
Yeah, no, I mean, it just, everything's changed.
Yeah, most definitely.
And it's funny too, even, like the difference between, say, D3 level amenities and D1 or the NFL, just it's night and day. I mean, the D3 people are going to do their best, and they're going to, with the limited money that they have to spend, they're going to do some nice things, and just 10 times better than what we had, back in the day. But it's crazy.
They're still out there. Some of the less fortunate high schools. I know I went to one. I had to do an evaluation of some officials that were doing it. So I sat up in the press box, and it was one of those ones made out of plywood, and you had to open up the plywood door. And the guy set down a can of wasp spray next to me. He goes, every once in a while, you may have to hit this to get through this thing. I'm like, I'm looking, there's like wasp nests up in the corner. I'm like, oh boy, this is going to be fun. And there was a hot box, of course, too. So it was good times. But between that and Tom Benson Stadium, there's a little bit difference there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's okay. Okay.
Right. But Tim, that is another beauty that you came up with. It's very interesting. Go back in the 1890s, thinking about them using, telephone communication at a football game at Penn.
Yeah.
That blows my mind. And most people never saw them in their houses at that point in time. I don't think in the 1890s, right around the turn of the century when they became more popular. But you have interesting things like this every day in your tidbits and football related, and it's just great to do it. And a lot of it ties into history, like today's did a little bit with the telecommunications. And people love to hear that stuff and read that stuff. Why don't you share with them where they too can enjoy this?
Yeah. So, easiest thing is just subscribe to my, subscribe on, footballarchaeology.com. It's free to subscribe. You'll get an email every day with whatever that day's story is. And, kind of read them at your leisure, or read them the moment they come out. And then, or don't read them, whatever is your preference. You can also, follow me on Twitter, on Threads, and on the Substack app. So any of those will work. So whatever suits your fancy.
All right. Well, Tim, excellent job once again. Footballarchaeology.com is the website. Timothy P. Brown is his name. And we will talk to you again next week on Tuesday.
Hey, thank you. We'll see you soon, Darren.
We're taking a peek over at the chains and the down marker. It's 4th and long. We're going to have to punt the ball and get on out of here. But we'll have another series tomorrow for your football history headlines. So be sure to tune in. We invite you to check out our website, pigskindispatch.com, not only to see the daily football history, but to experience positive football with our many articles on the good people of the game, as well as our own football comic strip, Cleat Marks Comics. Pigskindispatch.com is also on social media outlets, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and don't forget the Pigskin Dispatch YouTube channel to get all of your positive football news and history. Special thanks to the talents of Mike and Gene Monroe, as well as Jason Neff for letting us use their music during our podcast. PigskinDispatch.com is a proud affiliate of the Sports History Network, the headquarters of sports yesteryear.
Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, aka the Football History Dude, and I wanted to thank you for stopping by to listen to another episode here on the Sports History Network. Our podcasters are passionate about uncovering and sharing sports stories from yesteryear. And if you didn't know it already, we have over 30 shows across the network covering all sorts of sports history topics. In fact, here's a glimpse into one of our awesome podcasts here on the network.
Each week, the official Football Learning Academy podcast will take you deep into the history of pro football through interviews with players, coaches, or administrators in the NFL, as well as interviews with Pro Football Hall of Fame selectors, authors, and historians. You'll learn how the game evolved and important moments that shaped the sport into what it is today. And don't miss the Pro Football History Nugget of the Week. Listen to the official Football Learning Academy podcast on the Sports History Network.
How about that? I bet you're super hyped to go listen to that new podcast, right? Well, to learn about this show and all the other podcasts on the network, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com/podcast. Again, that's sportshistorynetwork.com/podcast. Head over there today to find your next favorite sports history podcast.